Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. You got a little bonus rebroadcast there for just a moment, a little technical glitch. Thanks for joining us this morning. We have a lot to cover. We're going to kick off with some comments from viewers. We also have here quite a few updates from over the Labor Day weekend, but let's get right to it. Good morning, Frank, from Mainz, Germany. We'll be adding that to the map. Thank you very much. A big Germany wave. I appreciate that. Mark writes in, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Mark. Congress returns today and faces a September 30th deadline to prevent the government shutdown. And the Democrats are trying to impeach Kennedy. Yes, there's a lot about Kennedy. I know there was an op-ed written by some former, I believe it was, CDC employees. We may get to that a little bit later on. But to your first point, lawmakers get back to work today following their August recess. And the number one priority, keeping the government open for business. The federal government will shut down at the end of September if Congress doesn't pass a short-term spending measure, but expect plenty of inter-party bickering since Republicans, who have the majority, still need Democratic votes for any funding bill. The Democrats are planning to use that leverage to extract concessions from the GOP. As a matter of fact, on MSNBC, yesterday, Ro Khanna, Democrat from California, said Democrats will not surrender during the budget battle like Chuck Schumer did with the Republican-led budget resolution the last time around. Ali Vitali said the other thread that I'm following as you all come back to town is the funding fight that is brewing at the end of September. The government shutdown, of course, last time, there was a lot of consternation between the Senate and the House. House Democrats told me that they sort of felt hung out to dry by Senate Democrats in the way that they ultimately ended up avoiding a shutdown. What are the lessons that you guys are going to put into play? I know that many of you look at this as a leverage point. Has the caucus already huddled and discussed a strategy? He said, we're going to fight. We're going to stand up for our principles. Well, it looks like withholding our votes until we get basic concessions. And you say, what are those basic concessions? Follow the law. Don't militarize our streets. Don't engage in the cuts to agencies like the Department of Education, USAID, NIH, NSF, with which aren't authorized by Congress. You have an administration that doesn't care what budget we're passing. What's the point of passing a budget if they're just going to make these cuts anyway? What's the point of passing a budget for the CDC for vaccine implementation when you have a Secretary of Health and Human Services who's got edicts saying you don't believe in science, you don't believe in mRNA? Can you believe that? It's nothing to do with COVID. They're blocking cancer vaccines that have mRNA. So this Congress has to stand up and say we're not going to be a blank check. You need to follow the Constitution. We're Article 1, the President is Article 2. Somehow no one remembers that. And this is about the pride of government, self-government in Congress. So we are not going to have the Schumer dance this time of just surrender. We're going to stand up for the American people, our base demands it. Now, this comes off the heels, and we mentioned it quite a bit last week, the anger at Schumer still to this day. A lot of people suggesting he should no longer be in leadership. Many suggesting that AOC should primary him. His polling shows that he's at, I think, the lowest since they started taking polls for him. So yes, Chuck Schumer is in a very interesting situation. So thanks for kicking off the program with that, Mark. We've got quite a few other updates on the Democrat Party in general. First, no Powerball winner. There was no winner of the $1.1 billion Powerball jackpot. This is the fifth largest prize in the game's history, and it will now grow even larger. The next drawing is Wednesday. Not that you need to know the numbers, but the winning numbers were 8, 23, 25, 40, 53, and 5 as the Powerball. So it looks now like the jackpot will be right around $1.3 billion. Yes, you heard me right, with a B. $1.3 billion, and the next drawing is Wednesday. There you go. Speaking of getting rich, one way we know that people can do that is by becoming a member of Congress. Representative Ilhan Omar has reported a net worth of up to $30 million in her latest financial disclosure. A document filed just months after the Congresswoman dismissed claims that she was a millionaire, calling it ludicrous and categorically false, because obviously being a millionaire is looked frowned upon. If you remember the Squad, very much pushing socialist ideals. The disclosure filed in May shows that the far-left Squad lawmaker and her husband, Tim Minnitt, experienced a roughly, get ready for this, 3,500% increase in their net worth last year compared to 2023. The surge in the couple's wealth was first reported by the Washington Free Beacon on Monday. The financial gains came from Minnett's two businesses, a winery and a venture capital firm headquartered in Washington, D.C. Omar valued the winery's assets at between $1 million and $5 million in her latest disclosure. By comparison, the winery was only worth $15,000 to $50,000 in Omar's previous financial disclosure. More dramatic was the explosion in growth experienced by Minnett's venture capital firm called Rose Lake Capital, LLC. Their assets were valued between $5 million to $25 million by the end of 2024. The company had less than $1,000 in assets the previous year. Less than $1,000, growing miraculously to somewhere between $5 million and $25 million. Notably, income from the venture capital firm is listed as none in 2024, but between $15,000 and $50,000 for the previous year. Rose Lake Capital claims to have $60 billion in assets under management. The company touts its deep global networks built from on-the-ground work in more than 80 countries, working across business, politics, banking, and diplomacy. It offers clients expertise in several facets of business, including structuring legislation. The Congresswoman decried, she was outraged about the disinformation, as she called it, back in February when asked about online speculation that she was a secret millionaire, saying at the time, since getting elected, there has been a coordinated right-wing disinformation campaign claiming all sorts of wild things, including the ridiculous claim that I am worth millions of dollars, which is categorically false. I'm a working mom with a student loan debt. Unlike some of my colleagues, and similar to most Americans, I am not a millionaire, and I'm raising a family while maintaining a residence in both Minneapolis and D.C., which are among the most expensive housing markets in the country. The disclosure does list as much as $100,000 in credit card and student loan debt owed by Omar. She also has between $1,000 and $15,000 in her Congressional Credit Union saving account and another $15,000 to $50,000 in a retirement fund from her time in the Minnesota State Legislature. So again, decried, yet screaming from the rooftops that she was not a millionaire. Now it looks to be a net worth of up to $30 million for Representative Ilhan Omar. So that's how we're kicking off our broadcast this morning. We do have some updates, like I said, from over the weekend that I think are worth mentioning. Quite a few things here about the Democrat Party as they tried to get their footing, if you will. We've seen the registration numbers. The Democrat Party is not in good shape. They can't come up with a clear message. You see that with the criticism of their own with Chuck Schumer. But then you have the kind of idea that they're doing a little bit better than just a few months ago with the rise of Gavin Newsom and some other resistance leaders. So we're going to tell you a little bit about that and just about the Trump administration in general, the crackdown in Washington. Oh, also, on Friday, I ran out of time because it is a little bit lengthy, but the Hornell Sun did get a response from Scott Van Etten in regards to the case with the sheriff, the appeal of that decision by the New York State Supreme Court that found Sheriff Allard vindicated. We're going to tell you what Van Etten had to say. Again, you can find the whole piece at the Hornell Sun. We'll try to get to all of it. There was also a response to that piece by Joe Ricalto. So we're going to talk about those two pieces from the Hornell Sun. It's worth mentioning because that's obviously a topic that we've been following very closely for a very long time. Since the beginning of these broadcasts on television. I think it happened all around the same time. So we've been talking about it all that time, but I think it's only fair because We have not heard from Mr. Van Etten to read what the Hornell Sun, I guess you could call it, interview that they received. We're going to tell you about it a little bit later on in the program. But we got to take a short break, just getting warmed up here on Frankly Speaking. Thanks for joining us. I hope you had a nice Labor Day weekend. Let me know how it went. Did you celebrate the kind of unofficial end to summer? And with the kids going back to school, I don't think it's today, right? I think it's maybe tomorrow or Thursday. It's the year without cell phones. So those of you who are going into school, you'll have to let me know how the transition to cell phone-free schooling is. There's a piece, I don't know if we'll get a chance to bring it up on today's broadcast or not, but cheer the blessed end of fast times at cell phone high, writes the New York Post. So we may talk about that, but I'd love to know how it goes. That transition and those first few days of withdrawal. So if you have any insider info on that, let me know. But right now, let's take that short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Ferrari Auto Team!
The best campground?
Ask Google!
The best bait shop?
Ask Google!
The best Ram dealer?
Ask Google!
We did. Google reviews from customers rank Ferrario Ram in Elmira the highest Ram dealer in our area. And remember what Don says.
If you don't see me, I can't save you any money.
Make this the summer event. Going on now.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Dante Brown, Big Fox News, Southern Tier.
If you are one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you so much for joining us. An update, and I guess you could say another judge update. A New York City woman who was locked up for making deranged social media posts threatened to kill President Trump, has been quietly released by an Obama-appointed judge last week. And you'll recognize the name. Chief U.S. District Judge James Boasberg released, I guess that's Natalie Rose Jones, a 50-year-old Big Apple resident, putting her under electronic monitoring on August 27th and ordered that she see a psychiatrist once back home. The surprise release comes just days after U.S. Magistrate Judge Maxil Updaya denied Jones bond over the persistent threats on Trump's life she issued over social media earlier this month. Here's where we are, Jones wrote in a long Facebook page on August 26. I literally told the FBI in 5 states today that I'm willing to sacrificially kill the president. And I'm not, this gets into too much graphic details. This is what she wrote. In other posts, Jones urged Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to please arrange the arrest and removal ceremony of President Trump as a terrorist on the American people from 10 to 2 p.m. at the White House on Saturday, August 16th, 2025. Well, she got very specific. Officials were aware of the concerning post starting on August 2nd, and Jones herself told Secret Service agents in an interview that she would carry out the mission of killing him with a bladed object if she was given the chance. Many of the social media posts tagged the federal agencies, such as the Federal Bureau of Investigations, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and the Department of Homeland Security. Friends of Jones told Judge Boasberg, appointed by Obama in 2011, that she has a history of schizophrenia and mental illness, but has never become violent. Jones's arrest was touted by new D.C. U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro, saying threatening the life of the president is one of the most serious crimes and one that will be met with swift and unwavering prosecution. Make no mistake, justice will be served. Jones is currently awaiting trial on felony charges of threatening to kill the president. So busted for threatening to kill the president of the United States, quietly released from jail by none other than Judge James Boasberg. So there is an update on that. We've got a lot of different topics that are breaking stories. No real way to segue. That's been the case lately. That's what happens under the Trump news cycle. But we learn that Representative Jerry Nadler will not seek re-election to the House of Representatives next year, marking an end to his 34-year-long run representing Manhattan in Congress. But I wonder what Gutfeld's show is going to do. Nadler, who is 78, cited the need for a generational change. And we'll be talking a little bit about that when it comes to the Democrat Party in general. This idea that the Chuck Schumers and the kind of the establishment Democrats are no longer relevant. They no longer have the best interest of a party that has gone far left, has gone more the avenue of AOC, Zohran Mamdani. So he cited the need for generational change as a reason for calling it quits, and appeared to suggest that watching former President Biden's decline was also a factor. Quote, watching the Biden thing really said something about the necessity for generational change in the party. And I think I want to respect that, Nadler said. A younger replacement can maybe do better, can maybe help us more. There's expected to be a massive interest in Nadler's seat. It's a big deal. Nadler is a legend. He's an institution in both Manhattan and Washington. A Democrat Party insider told the New York Post, his retirement represents a generational opening. I could see at least a half dozen people running for that seat in a Democrat primary. Potential candidates include Empire State Assemblyman Michael Lasher and New York City Councilman Eric Botcher. Former New York City Comptroller, Manhattan Bureau President Scott Stringer would also be a serious contender for Nadler's seat. Stringer, a former state assemblyman representing Manhattan's Upper West Side, has long been a close ally of Nadler. Nadler did not reveal who he plans to support to take over his seat, but he reportedly intends to back Lasher, his former aide. Retirement, now he'll be up next year. Retirement rumors involving Nadler, the longest-serving New Yorker in Congress, have swirled for years amid age and health concerns. The congressman struggled with obesity for decades before undergoing gastric bypass surgery back in 2002. In 2019, Nadler was rushed to a hospital after nearly collapsing at a Manhattan press conference. He's also been caught dozing off multiple times at House Judiciary Committee hearings. He's the former chair of the powerful panel, the House Judiciary Committee. He bowed out of that race to keep his spot on the committee late last year and was replaced by Representative Jamie Raskin. If you recall, as leader of the Judiciary Committee, Nadler helped lead the 2 impeachments of President Trump. The congressman cited Trump's presidency as a reason why he was hesitant to retire, but said he now believes more that his older Democrat colleagues should consider making way for a new generation. I'm not saying we should change over the entire party, he said, but I think a certain amount of change is very helpful, especially when we face the challenge of Trump and his fascism. Nadler was first elected to Congress in 1992. He is the 10th most senior member of the House and 8th most senior Democrat. He is one of 4 House Democrats retiring without plans to seek a different office. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries described Nadler as a proud son of New York City and a relentless fighter for justice, civil rights, and liberties, and the fundamental promise of equality for all. As dean of the New York delegation, Congressman Nadler has been a dear friend and a valued mentor to myself and so many others through the People's House, Jeffries said. Jerry's years of leadership have earned him a spot among our nation's greatest public servants. He'll be deeply missed by the House Democratic Caucus next term, and we wish him and his family the very best in this new chapter. So 78-year-old Jared Nadler will not be seeking re-election, citing the need for generational change. And that has been a common refrain. That's why it's one of many reasons. But if you look at Cuomo losing to Mamadani, I think a lot of that was, well, his arrogance, not really campaigning. But also I think there is a push in the Democrat Party where they don't want the establishment any longer. That they've had enough of the old ways of doing things and they want these more socialist, far left ideas. And we are going to talk a little bit about that struggle that the Democrat Party is facing. But we got to take a short break. Stay with us. You guys are quiet this morning. Just waking up from after Labor Day, a longer Labor Day weekend. Keep your comments, though, and keep your waves coming in. A couple other updates when we come back, so stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Valicenti Advisory Services has been building long-term relationships in our community for over 35 years. We pride ourselves in the ability of our teams in wealth management and tax and business to work together to offer coordinated planning services for our clients. The mission of Valicenti Advisory Services is to provide specialized wealth management, tax, and business services to help clients meet their personal financial goals. Valicenti Advisory Services, Water Street in Elmira, Market Street in Corning. Visit us at valicenti.com.
Think it means to be a direct support professional?
Think again.
It's about making an impact on someone's life.
It's about learning new skills I can learn to advance my career.
Think you know what it means to have a meaningful job?
Think again.
This is not your typical 9 to 5.
Every day can be rewarding.
Every day is more than work.
Rethink your career.
Become a direct support professional.
An albino buffalo was born.
Nearly 500 kilos of cocaine has been seized in a bust.
Thousands lined the pier at Seneca Harbor. Race weekend brought thousands to Watkins Glen International.
Hundreds and horseheads joined other cities around the country on Saturday for the No Kings protest.
Day 1 of the National Glider Competition. Severe flooding has caused major disruptions in parts of Steuben County.
Throughout the year, prison reform has become a priority around New York State.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. So over the weekend, Rudy Giuliani got in quite a bad car accident. He is out of the hospital. It was also announced yesterday that President Trump will give the former New York City mayor the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the country's highest civilian honor. As President of the United States of America, I am pleased to announce that Rudy Giuliani, the greatest mayor in the history of New York City and an equally great American patriot, will receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom, our country's highest civilian honor, Trump posted on Truth Social. The president said more details on the timing of the award would come later. The honor is typically bestowed on individuals during ceremonies held at the White House. The announcement came 2 days after Giuliani was seriously injured in a car crash in New Hampshire. The former mayor's head of security said Giuliani's vehicle was struck from behind at high speed while traveling on a highway. Giuliani was transported to a nearby trauma center where he was diagnosed with a fractured vertebrae, multiple lacerations and contusions, as well as injuries to his left arm and lower leg. But he is in, quote, great spirits. He was released yesterday afternoon from the hospital, according to the New York Times. So he will be receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Of course, we all know until he cozied up to Trump, he was a hero, even to Democrats when you saw his handling as America's mayor, as they called him, during the 9/11 terror attacks. But that has all changed, and the media has turned on him. But he'll be receiving the Presidential Medal of Honor, or Medal of Freedom, excuse me. So that is a very big deal for Rudy Giuliani coming off the heels of that car accident. Okay, so we know public safety has been a major issue. President Trump, for lack of a better word, threatening other areas that he will send in the National Guard if they don't clean up their act. Well, over the weekend, Chicago had a deadly Labor Day weekend. 54 people shot, including 7 killed, as President Trump and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker spar over sending the National Guard into the Windy City. At least 32 separate shootings occurred in Chicago between Friday evening and noon on Monday, according to a review of police incidents. Just hours after Trump posted a message on Truth Social on Saturday criticizing Pritzker's handling of crime in the city, at least 7 people were shot around 11:10 p.m. in Bronzeville. All of the people are expected to be okay. Trump called the governor weak and pathetic for dismissing the need for a National Guard presence in the Windy City in a social media post. The president further warned, "We're coming," suggesting some sort of federal action on crime in Chicago if Pritzker doesn't, quote, straighten it out fast. National Guard troops or any kind of troops on the street of an American city don't belong unless there's an insurrection, unless there's truly an emergency, and there is not, Pritzker said. It's an invasion with U.S. troops. If in fact they do that, they'll be in court pretty quickly. Mayor Brandon Johnson also ended his speech at a Workers Over Billionaires march on Monday with a rallying cry of no troops in Chicago, invest in Chicago. Chicago has 573 murders this year, compared to 377 for New York City and 268 for Los Angeles. Chicago's murder rate was about 22 killings per 100,000 people, compared with 7 for LA and less than 5 for New York City. They're still lower than some major cities, including Detroit, which is at 32, Washington at 27, and Atlanta at 25. Now we know that Trump has already deployed thousands of National Guard troops to Washington earlier this month. Since the president declared a crime emergency in the nation's capital, violent crime has fallen by 45%, and carjackings are down a stunning 87% when compared with the same period in 2024. In June, Trump dispatched 4,000 National Guards and 700 Marine Service members to California amid violence with the anti-ICE riot. So we'll see, saying, "We're coming if Pritzker doesn't do something, straighten it out, quote, fast." So 54 shot, 7 killed in Chicago over the weekend, after Pritzker claims Trump and the National Guard are not needed. Now, Miranda Devine has an interesting piece on this, saying the unhinged hostility to Donald Trump's successful crime crackdown in Washington, D.C. puts Democrats inexplicably on the wrong side of their own voters. What are they thinking? Law and order is quite literally an 80-20 issue. You don't need a pollster to say so, but 81% of Americans of all political persuasions say crime is a major problem, according to a new AP poll released last week. The other 19% must be either criminals or blue city politicians or both. The president's approval rating has shot up from 40% in July to 45%, likely as a result of his deployment of the National Guard in D.C. and his promise to replicate the model in crime-ridden cities from Chicago to Baltimore to New York. In D.C., the crime rate has plummeted across the board, with violent crimes down 30% since the federal troops were deployed. The Metropolitan Police Department is even more bullish, citing a 40% drop in violent crime over the same period last year. That includes carjackings, which dropped a staggering 82%. Attorney General Pam Bondi tweeted new crime statistics for D.C., boasting of 1,528 arrests as of Sunday, including 156 illegal guns seized. Quote, this includes 2 arrests for threats against law enforcement, and an arrest for an assault on a federal officer with threats to kill President Trump, and an illegal alien MS-13 gang member, said Bondi. Nearly half of the arrests have been of illegal migrant criminals, including violent felons. D.C. residents are expressing relief at being able to live without a fear of being robbed or assaulted. Yet Democrat shills are all over CNN and MSNBC calling Trump a dictator and saying his crackdown on so-called crime is racist and a military occupation. Bondi has even had to fire 2 of her own lefty DOJ employees who have hurled abuse and a sandwich at federal officers who are bringing order to D.C. We know about those. We talked about those in the past. We don't have to go into the specifics. But the hostility runs deep in the Democrat Party that has made defunding police an article of faith. During a 3-hour cabinet meeting last week, the president trolled his political opponents about the trap they've landed themselves in when it comes to public safety, saying, quote, I think it's going to be a big, big subject for the midterms, and I think the Republicans are going to do really well. This Democratic consultant said he's put them in a trap again because there are all traps. 80-20 issues. They're almost 100-0. He then vowed to expand the model to other blue cities like Chicago and Baltimore. I hope that Illinois, I hope that New York, I hope that California, I hope they call me and they say, I'd love to have you come in and help us out. I'll be a totally different person with them. Gavin Newsom has seen the writing on the wall, and instead of the humiliation of Trump's troops doing what he should have done long ago, he launched his own crime crackdown. That would be the ideal situation if Democrat governors and mayors would only crack down on crime themselves instead of staging a political war with Trump that they are destined to lose. When asked by a reporter if he would consider sending the National Guard into red cities that are also seeing high crime, Trump said, sure, but there aren't that many of them. If you look at the top 25 cities for crime, just about every one of those cities is run by Democrats. That's when MSNBC went outraged. If anything, he underestimated the problem. Judging by a 2022 report by the Heritage Foundation titled Blue City Murder Problem, which found that 27 of the top 30 cities with the highest homicide rates were run by Democrats, 27 out of 30. The author cites Democrat criminal justice reforms, such as defunding the police, ending cash bail, refusing to prosecute misdemeanors, as New York's far-left mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani has promised to do, letting thousands of convicted felons out of prison early, and slashing the prison populations as being among the most obvious contributors to escalating violent crime problems in blue cities. The decriminalization of pot and public urination have turbocharged the sense of chaos and disorder in cities like New York and led to a feeling of lawlessness that encourages crime. It's reverse of broken windows, speaking of Mayor Giuliani, who was very much very good when it came to public safety. Mamdani now plans to pour fuel on the fire with his policy to make New York a double sanctuary city for illegal aliens. New York is bad enough as a sanctuary city, but Mamdani wants to make it even worse. He wants to ban ICE from removing violent criminals and predators, and he wants to spend millions of taxpayer dollars to create more LGBTQIA liaisons in schools to brainwash more kids that they are trapped in the body of the opposite sex. He also wants to codify transgender guidelines to force girls to share bathrooms with biological males. Mamdani is on the wrong side of history and recklessly exploiting a tinderbox social issue for base political profit. And we don't want to completely change the subject on that. But giving you an idea of what we have to deal with in New York, because keep in mind, I know we bring up Mamdani a lot, and I don't like to bring up just New York City issues, but it paints a larger picture because it's not just what we are going to be dealing with the gubernatorial race, because those same people that voted Socialist Mamdani to be the mayor are the same ones that will be voting in the gubernatorial race. So keep that in mind. But also it's painting a picture of the larger struggle with the Democrat Party nationwide and what their message is going to be. So Mamdani looks at some of these, cashless bail, defunding the police. It doesn't go far enough. No longer prosecuting misdemeanors. The list goes on and on. We do have something here about cashless bail, but I realize I'm running a little bit late. A couple more things about public safety when we come back. Yeah, I got a lot about the Democrat Party. I didn't realize. And as I mentioned, we are going to talk about the Steuben County issues. So make sure you stay tuned for that and some New York issues in general, what I do want to talk about cashless bail, and Democrats can lead on stopping crime, according to a Virginia candidate. James Carville wrote a piece of Fox News. We'll be talking about that when we come back. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
Hi, this is Tom Witzel, owner of Hesselson's in Amara Heights. At Hesselson's, we care about your well-being and overall health, whether it's relieving stress, muscle recovery, increasing circulation, or just revitalizing the body. Hesselson's now has 2 complete line of infrared and traditional rock saunas in our new and expanded showroom. Come in today and see why owning a sauna is a start of your new healthy lifestyle. Hesselson's is still locally and family owned and operated in Amara Heights. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Steuben County Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 annual implementation plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging.
10 p.m. somewhere. Do you know what your kids are doing online? Brought to you by Ferrario Jeep.
If you are one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer. Morning, Frank. It's me again, Sergeant Dave. Hey, Dave. Sergeant Dave, thanks for writing in. Good morning to you as well. I got a question. How does a federal judge have any right to stop tariffs our president is trying to use to benefit our country? What law is being broken? Great question. The activist judges are running wild. And the only problem with this, it seems as if Trump was prepared for it. He knew it was coming. So that's kind of interesting to watch. But at the same time, it creates so much confusion and causes some of these things to at least be delayed in their success. So I'm with you. The activist judges are running amok, and there's something that should be done legally with these activist judges. I don't know what that answer is, but maybe a conversation for Congress to have. So we're talking about crime. James Carville writes, I'll admit it, Democrats are on the defense when it comes to crime. President Trump's takeover of Washington and Los Angeles aren't making America any safer, but they're effective stunts designed to put Democrats on the back foot and distract from his administration driving our country to economic ruin. Remember, this is James Carville. It's an op-ed from Fox News. Republican law and order messaging is nothing new. Google Richard Nixon. But in the wake of the whole defund the police debacle, Democrats are still working to find clear, consistent answers to that vote to get voters' trust. Democrats' perceived position on law and order issues are some of the clear disconnects we have with working class voters of all races. We look even here in New York with the cashless bail. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. That needs to change, and fast. The stupidity from the White House will only intensify heading into the 2026 midterms. We need to be ready to not just counterpunch, but go on the offense when talking about crime. Democrats can't get caught up litigating stupid slogans. The good news is that former Virginia Democrat Representative Abigail Spanberger, who's on the ballot this November for governor in Virginia, is delivering a masterclass on what credible leadership on stopping crime looks like. This month, the Virginia Police Benevolent Association, the state's largest police union, unanimously endorsed Spanberger, the first time they backed a Democrat for governor of Virginia since the late 2000s. They notably snubbed Spanberger's opponent in this year's race, current Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears, who these police had endorsed in 2021 and whose campaign highlights to date include telling recently laid off Virginians that she doesn't understand why losing your job is a huge, huge thing. Of course, this isn't the first time Spanberger stands apart from her party. 5 years ago, the former federal law enforcement officer, CIA officer, and daughter of a cop blasted fellow Democrats for adopting defund the police messaging, warning that the phrase was both substantively wrong and politically toxic. Sounds familiar. Instead of following the worst instincts of her party, Spanberger has repeatedly stuck to her guns and bucked the party orthodoxy. She talks about what it means to wear the badge and what it means to see her dad put one on every day when he went to work. She crossed the aisle to vote for additional funding for police departments. She also led the charge to let retired officers receive the full Social Security benefits they paid into during their career. The law even earned her recent praise from the Fraternal Order of Police, the same police union that endorsed Trump during each of his 3 presidential runs. These aren't just political winners, they're the kind of decisions that Americans actually agree with, even if they leave some liberals grumbling. In a 2024 survey by Pew Research Center, it found that nearly 6 in 10 adults, including most half of Democrats, wanted reducing crime to be a top priority for American leaders. A Gallup poll from the same year showed public confidence in police rising to its highest level since 2018, with big increases among young people, non-white Americans, and political independents, the exact voters Democrats lost ground with in 2024. But to win elections, Democrats need to do more than just govern effectively. We need to aggressively communicate the steps we're taking to actually make American communities safer. That means speaking in plain, direct language that people really use, not sounding like we're auditioning for NPR Pledge Week. Democrats need to be on the attack. Our party leaders can't be afraid to call out Republican recklessness when it puts lives at risk. Just look at Louisiana Republican governor who deployed National Guard troops this month, not to respond to a real emergency, but to score political points with Trump. Washington bureaucrats might not know, but we're in the middle of a hurricane season, and our governor wants Louisiana troops used as props for photo ops. Seems crazy to me. Instead of following the worst instincts of her party, Spanberger has repeatedly stuck to her guns and bucked the party orthodoxy, as I mentioned earlier. The kind of authenticity cuts through the baloney, we'll say, and lazy Republican attack ads and PR stunts in connection with voters who want to see leaders do something to prevent crime in their communities. Democrats running in 2026 and beyond should pay attention. That's James Carville. So basically, kind of misrepresent who you are, and you'll be successful. Now, I'm not saying Spanberger isn't pro-police, but the party, look with Mamdani, the party has become, in the last decade or so, essentially anti-police, tying the hands of police and coddling criminals, and that ties in with cashless bail. Jennifer Harrison does a piece, and we have to take a break, so I'll read it when we come back, but it's called The Devastating Cost of Cashless Bail. We'll be mentioning that. I did, as I mentioned, Friday I ran out of time. We are going to talk about the sheriff, Steuben County Sheriff. We're going to talk about Scott Van Etten, who gave his side to the appeal, I guess would be one way of putting it. It's a little long, but they did a great job with it. Andrew Harris did a great job with it at the Hornell Sun or the Wellsville Sun, whichever one you decide to go to. I don't prefer either. They're both great, but I go to the Hornell Sun a lot. We're going to tell you what Scott Van Etten had to say, and then we're going to show you what Joe Ricalto had to say in response. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. And guess what? We got sent in our tip of the week. This viewer writes in, tip of the week. To charge your cell phone effectively, keep the battery level between 20% and 80% for optimal health, and avoid letting it drop to 0% frequently. Using the original charger and avoiding extreme temperatures could also help extend battery life. I gotta say, I'm one of those people that if it's anywhere below 100, I'm already starting to be concerned. So I'm not the best with those tips, but I appreciate that. That's we add on to Karen's quote and the Climate Fact Friday with Bob. So we appreciate the tip of the week. Okay, Jennifer Harrison writes in, I've campaigned for victims' rights ever since, this is Jennifer Harrison, the devastating cost of cashless bail, since her boyfriend and his best friend were killed and two of the murderers got sweetheart deals. The president taking such decisive action to save lives this week is bittersweet. For those who have never stood in our shoes, it's hard to explain what it feels like to bury someone you loved unnecessarily, to hold a folded flag or a photo instead of a spouse, child, sibling, or parent. We as victims went through the worst nightmare imaginable, and while we were trying to pick up the shattered pieces of our lives, politicians were busy patting themselves on the back for social justice reforms that only created more victims. We watched New York Democrats ram through bail reform, stripping judges of discretion and unleashing chaos. We watched elected officials like Kathy Hochul stand proudly on a stage and thank the families of killers as she signed legislation written by them, with no mention of the victims whose blood had been spilled, no acknowledgement of the grief that families will carry for the rest of their lives. Imagine the cruelty of that moment, to glorify those who destroyed lives while erasing the memory of the ones they destroyed. Meanwhile, millions of taxpayer dollars have flowed into programs designed to support criminals, housing them, feeding them, offering them endless second chances. And what about us, the victims? We struggle day to day financially and emotionally, often with no resources, no lifeline, no recognition. Families are left with empty chairs at the dinner table, mounting bills for funerals and therapy, and the haunting trauma that never goes away. This is the bitter reality we have lived with. And now, finally, there seems to be a light at the end of the tunnel, cold tunnel. President Trump's executive order is a long overdue acknowledgement that public safety must come first. For years, those in power denied that there was even a problem, and still do. If you remember, Hochul denied recently, saying, there was no recidivism increase. They dismissed they told us crime was down while body bags piled up. They dismissed our stories as anecdotes, as if our dead loved ones were just numbers on a page. But we know the truth. Somewhere around 700 lives have been lost in New York alone because of bail reform. That's 700 families destroyed, 700 names added to a list that never should have existed in the first place. And that's only counting bail reform. When you add parole reform, when you add the revolving door for so-called youthful offenders, the numbers climb even higher. Every one of those lives mattered. Every one of them had dreams, families, futures stolen in the name of equity. So yes, this moment is hopeful, but it is also painful because it never had to be this way. Imagine if leaders had listened when he first raised alarm. Imagine if victims' voices carried the same weight as those of the criminal justice activists funded by billionaires. Imagine if the grief of a mother burying her child mattered as much as the rehabilitation of the person who pulled the trigger. How many lives would have been saved? This executive order cannot bring back our loved ones. It cannot erase the trauma or fill the empty seats at holidays, but it can and must be the beginning of a long overdue course correction. The vague language some critics point to could actually be its greatest strength, because it allows broad discretion to cut off taxpayer funding for any jurisdiction that uses it to release repeat offenders. Washington, D.C., for example, spent $88 million last year on programs that funneled offenders back onto the streets. That money should never have been spent on those who hurt our communities. Let's be clear. This is not about vengeance. This is about prevention. This is about making sure no more families have to endure the pain we live with every single day. Recidivism is the heart of the problem in New York and everywhere these programs have been implemented. Offenders being released over and over until someone gets killed. If this executive order helps break that cycle, then it's a step in the right direction. But let us never forget, every step forward comes too late for those who've already buried. Crime victims are the only unwilling participant in the criminal justice system. Everyone else chose their role, from judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys, law enforcement, and of course the offender. Yet nobody said, pick me, I want to be a crime victim. So it's the least our system can do is to offer a semblance of fairness and balance to the only unwilling participant, the victim of crime. The victims are not here to thank the president, as grateful as our families are. They're not here to testify. They're not here to share their story. All we have are their names, their memories, and the responsibility to make sure the deaths were not in vain. This is the bittersweet truth. We are finally being heard, but only after far too much blood has been spilled. All right, we got to take a short break. Yes, we are going to talk about Steuben County. Speaking of public safety and law enforcement, we're going to talk about the sheriff in a little bit, but stay with us. We got to take a break. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
There have always been a few ready to fight and win. Since 1775, these few have been Marines, and they come from across this land to defend the future of our nation. This year, our Corps celebrates 250 years, and Marines are proud to serve this country, each other, and all that is still to come for America.
This website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
If you have one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us. Hour number one, nearly in the books. It's hard to believe. We're going to be talking about Steuben County issues. We have your thoughts. Oh, a comment from a viewer, by the way. Good morning. Well, hey, good morning. Just a quick question. Any more talk about eliminating daylight savings? Not that I have heard. I actually Google searched it real quick before going on the air, and there was no new articles from when, I think the last time Trump brought it up was around April. So nothing new. That'll be coming up in no time. I think it's the very beginning of November, right? So I hope that conversation gets going again. I would love to hear your thoughts. I know at the time most people seemed in favor of eliminating it and just ending the switch. But I'm sure there's other reasons why some people would not want that. But this one coming up is when the days get a lot shorter, that's for sure. So I have not heard anything. If I do, I will make sure to highlight it on the program. Okay. Oh, and I do want to hear your thoughts on, as school nears, I think schools start, someone told me certain ones anyway in our area start on Thursday. Is that right? But I'd love to know if anybody on the ground, whether that's a teacher or you have a student, I want to know, if you wouldn't mind, how the cell phone ban goes. Because this is the beginning of the cell phone ban. I don't know how each school did, because it sounds like each school district has like their own, they can have their own way of doing things. So I haven't heard exactly what it's going to be like here locally, but it's going to be fascinating to hear about. So if you know any insiders, please let me know. We may talk a little bit about that and about the teachers union if we have a chance, because that ties in with the Democrat Party. We do have some Trump updates and your thoughts on the new kind of the axis of evil from over the weekend, where you had, and we haven't even mentioned this yet. So it was over the weekend, Chinese President Xi Jinping invited more than 20 foreign leaders, including India and Russia, to a regional security forum in a kind of a poke in the chest, if you will, of the United States to counter the U.S.-led Western system. India Prime Minister Modi talked up his country's energy relations with Russia, which had prompted the U.S. to slap punishing 50% tariffs on India. For decades, the U.S. wooed India as an ally to counter Chinese influence in Asia. But after the surprise tariff hit, India has been increasingly embracing Beijing. So your thoughts on that? And that's, I don't know what you'd want to call it, poke in the chest, a little bit of sending a message to the United States. We may talk about that in the next hour. I can't guarantee, because we have a lot to get to. And if hour number 2 is anything like hour number 1, it is going to go fast, especially considering this is quite a lengthy piece in regards to Scott Van Etten and then the response by Joe Ricalto. You can find them all at the Hornell Sun, but we're going to talk about that because obviously we're trying to always keep you updated on the sheriff's case, and this may be the first time that I've heard any kind of response from Scott Van Etten. So we will read that to you. Probably won't go through the whole background because this is a lengthy piece, and luckily you've been, maybe we will. We'll figure it out. Okay, let's take a short break. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2, mere moments away. Stay with us.
More cars, lower prices. Simmons Rockwell. Make car buying simple when you drive your deal at a Simmons Rockwell location near you, where you'll always find more cars at lower prices.
What better start or end every day than relaxing in your very own Hesselson's hot tub? Massage therapy, relaxation, stress reliever, pain management, soothing muscles, or just spending time with a loved one. Hot water therapy really does make every day better. Hesselson's has been a part of this great community for over 70 years, still being locally owned and operated. So make the drive to Hesselson's and start making your path to a better life today. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Enjoy Finger Lakes at Hector Hideaway.
With dine inside or out on the deck for gorgeous lake views, and pair your meal with a local wine, beer, or beverage. Visit us today at Hector Hideaway.
It's a season of sherry.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live and proudly from the Hesselson studio. Before we talk about Steuben County and the appeal, let's go to a viewer comment first. Mark writes in, remember the Democrats saying for 4 years the economy is great. You have plenty of money. Yes, nothing to worry about. You don't know how good you have it right now under the Biden administration, they would tell us. Well, isn't that the same group telling us crime is down? Great point, Mark. Fudge and lie. Totally ridiculous. Yes, and we, especially when the National Guard were first brought into Washington, D.C., there was quite a few really good pieces, more from conservative outlets, showing how they can fabricate the numbers to make it look like crime's down, and Hochul's doing the same thing. We're told that there is no recidivism because of bail reform. Anyway, we don't have to go through that whole line. But yes, they can obviously manipulate those numbers, and that's what it looks like they've done. Speaking of public safety, so let's give you this, and it is a little bit out of date, but I have my thoughts that you perhaps did not see it, and I meant to bring it up on Friday. Just ran out of time because it is lengthy. But in the Allard v. Steuben County, is how they put it at the Hornell Sun, Scott Van Etten makes his case for appealing the decision. Now, if you recall, the sheriff was completely vindicated when asking the legislature if they should appeal. 9-8, they voted against the appeal. But according to the county lawyer, because legislator Scott Van Etten's name was on the original suit, he could go at it alone. The problem with that is, and he chose to. The problem with that is, of course, it's at taxpayer expense. Now, until now, no one has heard from Scott Van Etten, who has been accused of running a coordinated political hit job because he doesn't like Sheriff Allard. Allard's supporters contend that this attack on law enforcement was the former chairman's vendetta to punish Allard after years of bad blood. The former chairman, Scott Van Etten, saying the sheriff and his supporters have been very effective at creating a narrative that this is me personally attacking the sheriff and his office. What isn't part of that narrative is that the county legislature voted 10-7 to remove the sheriff's indemnity, and the voted 9-8 against the appeal. Our local lawmakers comfortably passed the local law to remove indemnity protection and then narrowly voted against appeal. This isn't just Scott Van Etten, said Scott Van Etten. When asked about a dramatic increase in the sheriff, now the face of the ongoing litigation, Van Etten presented his case to the Sun beginning in 2019 when he noticed the sheriff beginning to openly challenge legislative oversight. When asked about a dramatic increase in the sheriff's office budget, Allard took those questions personally and was defensive, said Van Etten. So Van Etten provided some of the key events that compelled lawmakers to act initially and continues to be a matter of principle, is the term that Van Etten used. And the reason, I wanted to bring this up anyway, it's only right because we've covered this story so long, but also there is a great piece by Joe Ricalto that responds to this, and I think you need the history here. Van Etten proved some of the key events that compelled lawmakers to act initially. In 2019, Allard formed the Steuben County Sheriff's Association and named himself as the chairman of the board of directors. Then County Attorney Jennifer Prozik notified Allard that the foundation violated New York state law and was formed without county approval. After about a year, Allard and other Sheriff's Department leadership stepped down from official roles in the charity to address the ethics and conflict of interest concerns raised by the county attorney. In 2021, the sheriff entered into a contract and a 3-year financing agreement with a vendor without county attorney approval, and the agreement was not presented to the sitting Public Safety Committee. Legally, the sheriff has no authority to encumber the county to any financial agreement. The relationship between Allard and the legislature further eroded. Remember, this is Scott Van Etten's take on it. Allard filed an age discrimination complaint with the New York State Division of Human Rights against the then chairman, Van Etten, in 2022. The complaint was dismissed because Allard is an elected official, not an employee. Van Etten pointed out he and the sheriff are within 1 year in age, and the complaint cost the county was approximately $15,000 in outside counsel fees to respond to complaints. Now, I'm just presenting this as it is being reported by the Hornell Sun. Yes, I know you're saying, well, $15,000 for what could have very well been very much an age discrimination complaint, but because the sheriff is not an employee, it couldn't go anywhere. Okay, how about the $200,000 that we've spent on this from the beginning? And that's a low conservative estimate. Later in 2022, the conflict between the sheriff and the legislature reached a boiling point. That's Van Etten's term. By Van Etten's account, and corroborated by 2 legislators, Sheriff Allard refused to obey county policy regarding sex discrimination and sexual harassment investigations. In 2018, New York State enacted the One Policy for All, which required counties to have independent compliance officers who may use outside counsel to review all sex discrimination and sexual harassment complaints. This policy prohibits internal investigation into complaints of this nature. Steuben County adopted a policy consistent with a state mandate. But the sheriff could continue to conduct his own internal investigation despite the new state law. Van Etten, as county legislative chairman, Jack Wheeler as county manager, and county attorney notified the sheriff that continuing to conduct internal investigations was placing the county in legal peril. According to Van Etten, allowing the sheriff to conduct his own investigations created major exposure to civil litigation. Van Etten states that third-party investigators found evidence of discrimination, intimidation, favoritism, and retaliation when they conducted a sexual harassment complaint within the sheriff's office. According to Van Etten, quote, this was undoubtedly what drove the legislature to pass the local law in September of 2023, removing the sheriff's identification. Sheriff Allard filed a petition before the New York State Supreme Court in October of 2023 against Steuben County legislator Van Etten and Wheeler. Van Etten and 2 other legislators confirmed that during mediation efforts by the New York State Association of Counties and the New York State Sheriff's Association, a compromise was offered. Quote, we asked him to please begin following state and county policy and we would repeal the local law, removing his identity. Allard refused. Allard didn't just disagree, he then filed a workplace harassment complaint against Van Etten and Wheeler after a contentious March 2024 Financial Committee meeting. That complaint is still under investigation. Judge Cook issued his ruling in favor of Allard, a judgment that was nullified the local laws passed in September of 2023. So the current state of affairs is that the Steuben County Legislature voted against appeal, and now Chairwoman Kelly Fitzpatrick has openly stated on this program, as a matter of fact, it's time to move forward. County Manager Jack Wheeler has decided to follow suit with the legislature and not move forward. As a named party to the original suit, Van Etten exercised his right to appeal last month with the continued support of other legislators. He said, Sheriff Allard has done a good job of framing this as an attack on him, the sheriff's office, and law enforcement in general. That sure plays well in the court of public opinion, but in the end, the legislature, county attorney, county manager are doing our duty for the residents who elected us to serve. Sorry, gotta be impartial. As legislators, we provide oversight of all county operations as a vital part of local government operations. In the case of Sheriff Allard, his refusal to follow state and county policy not only created a major risk to the county, but was also a disservice to the employees. Every county employee should have the same personal protections provided to them, which is why New York State required that we adopt the one policy for all. In Rensselaer County, a major policy breach resulted in a 7-figure judgment against the county. After the sheriff repeatedly refused to comply with state and county policy, the only recourse to shield the county taxpayer from the risk created was to remove the sheriff's indemnity protections. So I think a fair question would be where's all this money? All these lawsuits that he alleged were going to be forthcoming. The appeal filed by Van Etten seeks a reversal of New York State Supreme Court ruling. The appeal, which is available online at the Hornell Sun, is based on what Van Etten has argued was a political judgment by Judge Cook. County lawyers will argue that the basis of Cook's decision was that the county acted in bad faith, which is an invalid reason to force the reversal of county legislation. The main argument from Van Etten in the appeal is based on a U.S. Supreme Court precedent. Any law that is facially constitutional and serves a legitimate governmental purpose cannot be overturned based on a bad faith argument. Essentially, as long as the local law meets the above standard, bad faith between parties involved is irrelevant. Even if Van Etten and the 9 other legislators voted to repeal the sheriff's identity solely because they disliked him and wanted him to retire, they could still pass a constitutional and legitimate law. Van Etten also points out that Allard, in his court filings, has openly admitted that under state law, the county is under no obligation to provide identity to the elected sheriff. Steuben County has the option to provide the coverage to the sheriff or not. In Van Etten's opinion, removing the sheriff from the county's insurance policy was a legitimate step to protect the county taxpayers from legal exposure caused by the sheriff's refusal to follow state and county policy. So again, where we know that this has already cost us around $200,000 in what has been called bad faith. So where is this cost the sheriff's office is supposedly costing us? Scott Van Etten concluded by saying, to not appeal this decision by Judge Cook would be paramount to turning the other cheek, to burying my head in the sand. It would be willfully ignoring settled New York state law. What the sheriff and his supporters call an attack on law enforcement is quite the opposite, in my opinion. This appeal is doing my duty as a lawmaker to respect and defend the rule of law while trying to minimize additional civil liability costs for the county taxpayers. Okay, so there is Mr. Van Etten's side of the story. Now, we've been following this for a long time, but to be fair, that's the first time we heard from Van Etten, so we wanted to bring that to you. Now, Joe Ricalto, who we've read his op-eds in the past, he was not buying it, for lack of a better term. So Joe Ricalto from Hornell writes, Scott Van Etten's recent interview is nothing more than a desperate attempt to rewrite history and defend a reckless appeal that the majority of Steuben County taxpayers neither support nor deserve to pay for. Consider his own words. Quote, Sheriff Allard has done a good job of framing this attack on him, the sheriff's office, and law enforcement in general. That sure plays well in the court of public opinion. Sheriff Allard didn't frame anything. Judge Cook himself ruled that the county acted in bad faith when Van Etten led the charge to strip identity from the sheriff. The court saw it, the legislature saw it, and the public saw it. The only person refusing to see the truth is Van Etten. Every county employee should have the same personal protections, which is why New York State required that we adopt the one policy for all. That claim is laughable, writes Joe Ricalta. The legislature didn't strip identity from every employee. They singled out one elected law enforcement officer. This wasn't about fairness. It was about retaliation. That's not good governance. That's politics at its worst. He quotes Van Etten again, to not appeal this decision would be willfully ignoring settled New York State law. No, what's willfully ignorant is pretending this appeal is anything other than a poorly written, hollow, taxpayer-funded stunt. The legislature already voted against appeal. Chairwoman Fitzpatrick said it's time to move forward. County Manager Wheeler agreed. Yet Van Etten insists on dragging us all into more pointless litigation, clinging to ego, not law. Let's be clear, this appeal is so weak, it should have been filed for free. Instead, it's draining county coffers while Van Etten scrambles to salvage credibility that is long gone, if it ever existed. This is not just an attack on Sheriff Allard, it's an attack on every law enforcement officer who puts their life on the line for Steuben County. Sheriff Allard has built trust, modernized the sheriff's office, and kept our communities safe. Meanwhile, Van Etten has embarrassed the county, wasted $500,000 of our money, and disgraced himself. The courts have spoken. The legislature has moved on. The county manager has moved on. The only one who hasn't is Scott Van Etten. It's long past time taxpayers stopped bankrolling his vendetta. So thank you to Joe Ricalto. So that was a lot of updates from last week on that topic. I'm sure we'll be talking to the sheriff soon enough. But I wanted to give you a little bit more of a background. When we come back, I see some comments coming in. Ran a little bit late on that. But we're going to talk about the Democrat Party. We've been talking about them a lot this morning and about their struggles to get a message out there, and Trump doing a great job of painting them into a corner time and time again, where it looks as if they are supporting crime, or it looks like they're supporting illegal immigration, or whatever the case may be. So that is a struggle that they're having with their message. So anyway, sorry, just seeing some more comments. I get distracted by the comments sometimes, but we're going to talk about the Democrat Party. So stay with us. We'll be right back. But frankly speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Steuben County Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 annual implementation plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging.
We've had many wonderful memories as a family. Dropping Shelly off at school, I prayed he wouldn't get stuffed in a gym bag. Missy might have been the one in Little League.
I'm asking the Lord to watch over my little girl.
Well, while you're at it, ask him for a win. I got money on this.
But Georgie is the one who threw us the real curveball.
I got a girl pregnant.
Oh, no. Are you kidding me? We may not be perfect, but to me, we have the perfect family.
Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
If you have one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. This viewer writes in, no matter how Van Etten presents his case against Sheriff Allard, it still sounds personal. Thank you very much. All right, the Democrat Party, according to a piece that came out over the weekend by Joseph Curl, said the Democrat Party is disintegrating before our very eyes. As things stand, the Democrats might never win another presidential election. They might spend the next 20 years in the wilderness, and it has only itself to blame. Now, earlier we were talking about this idea that they're trying to rebrand or present a different message when it comes to public safety. But things have never been this bad for the party of hope and change. They hope they can change, but they're face-to-face with a three-headed beast that threatens to push them off a cliff. Millions of voters are abandoning the party, approval ratings have hit a 30-year low, and fundraising is in the dumper. Let's break down those three. Between the 2020 and 2024 elections, Democrat lost ground to Republicans in all 30 states that track voter registration by political party. This was reported by the New York Times, and I had mentioned it on this program. The exodus represents a staggering 4.5 million voter swing towards Republicans, and the political chasm could take years, even decades, to bridge. Democrats lost more than 2 million registered voters during the period, while Republicans gained 2.4 million, according to the paper's analysis. Last year, for the first time since 2018, more new voters nationwide chose to register as Republicans than Democrats. The voter flight occurred across the political spectrum, in battleground states, deep blue strongholds, and red states alike. The party's struggles extend beyond voter registration. A recent CNBC survey shows the Democrat Party's net favorability has plummeted to a near three-decade low of minus 32 among registered voters. The party now holds just a 24% positive rating compared with a 56% negative rating. The 32 rating appeared to be the lowest rating for either party going back to at least 1996. The party's financial situation mirrors its other serious troubles. After its devastating 2024 elections, the Democrat National Committee trails the Republican National Committee by nearly every fundraising metric. By June's end, the RNC held 80 million, Democrats just 15 million. Major Democrat donors have withheld contributions amid uncertainty about the party's direction, while small dollar donations, traditionally a Democrat strength, have failed to compensate for the shortfall. The party has quickly burned through available funds, including more than $15 million spent this year to settle remaining expenses from Vice President Kamala Harris's disastrous presidential campaign. Internal tensions over the party's direction are percolating just under the surface. Some Democrats continue to advocate for the far left position, the AOCs, the Mamadani. They want AOC to at least run for Schumer's spot. If not president, you have Mamadani. Despite lower electoral setbacks, while others are pushing for moderation, think, well, no one, the bench is just that weak. The center-left think tank, Third World, has one simple question. Lose the woke. The group urges Democrats to ban 42 words and phrases that just don't go over well with average Americans. We mentioned this last week as well, such as privilege, microaggression, body shaming, system of oppression, the unhoused, birthing person, dead naming, and incarcerated people. In a memorandum addressed to all who wish to stop Donald Trump and MAGA, Third Way says that much of the language is a red flag for a sizable segment of the American public. So what did the Democrats do in the summer meeting this week in Minneapolis, last week? The first since President Trump beat the snot out of them. You guessed it, they doubled down on the woke and then made a hard left turn. The Democratic National Committee's meeting opened with a land acknowledgement statement. Quote, in many ways, we still live in a system built to suppress indigenous people's culture and spiritual history, said an indigenous woman who took the podium, wearing what appeared to be a pride scarf. The group meeting then moved on to a presentation from the Vera Institute, a think tank that supports defunding the police. The presenter told the crowd that being tough on crime is authoritarian and said migrant crime and carjackings are things that don't matter to many Americans. And we talked about that on the program as well. Where next? And transgender teens, of course. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison boasted about filing a lawsuit against the Trump administration for prohibiting minors from getting sex change operations. Oakland Mayor Barbara Lee then bragged about how her city's law enforcement is refusing to cooperate with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. To show just how out of touch the Democrats are right now, DNC Chair Ken Martin took the podium and tried to describe the situation the Democrats find themselves in right now, but he botched the metaphor, saying, "I'm sick and tired of this Democrat Party bringing a pencil to a knife fight." Not even close. The saying is bring a knife to a gunfight. They're both good weapons. You're just outgunned if you're the one holding the knife. But a pencil? Well, when you're not even really in the fight, are you? And that's just where the Democrats find themselves right now, not in the fight. So that was Joseph Curl at the Washington Times as we talk about the struggle the Democrats are having getting their message. Van Jones. But see, this is the problem. You have people like Van Jones who admit the woke activism got ridiculous, but then they have their convention and they push, as they said there, they push that same narrative. So former Obama advisor Van Jones has had it with employees bringing their politics to work, saying it has gotten ridiculous and it's time to move on. For many companies, the new message to employees is check your politics and your activism at the door when you come to work. CEOs are making one thing clear. The office is not the public square, and they're probably not wrong about that. And this was Abby Phillips on CNN. Phillips added that politics has seeped into nearly every corner of society in recent years. And it's not to say that you can't have free speech in your life, but employees are just like, do your job and don't do anything else. Now we know that Van Jones has a long history of being a progressive activist himself. He was sympathetic of the mindset of such activists, but he said their time has passed. Quote, "This is not going to make me popular, but I'm not mad about the change because it got ridiculous. I mean, I'm an employer, and at a certain point, your Slack channel just turns into Vietnam every other day, because something happened that had nothing to do with the workplace." He noted the headache of having to bring in counselors for such moments of crisis, saying this is not camp, guys. We're trying to make money. So I enjoyed the moment for a while where we were having our reckonings about everything. We done wrecked, okay? We went into reckoning to wrecked. We need to move on. Sabrina Singh, who was also on the panel, said, "I take a similar approach. I think what you do in your own free time, whatever you want to participate in political activism or whatever it is, whatever cause you take up, I think you have to do that on your own time." Phillips recalled working on a book about activist Jesse Jackson, noting how he once pressured companies from the outside to adopt more progressive policies. Years later, she said, public perception shifted after a flood of corporate PR statements, so much so that people may have gotten fooled that these corporations were going anything other than what they needed to do to survive. Republican strategist Lance Trover said, "You need to mark this moment in this showdown. This may be where we all agree here at the table, here tonight. I mean, yeah, welcome to the real world, Gen Z wokesters. I don't know what to tell you." So there you go. Maybe going a little bit far with it, but these are the same people that were advocating for it. But when they see it has not been successful when it comes to elections, now they're, as someone said it last week, Rose banding of their name is still Rose. They're trying to cover it up, trying to hide their activism. But will that work? If you look at that piece about the disintegrating Democrats, it does not. At least if you look at the polling and you look at the funding. I mean, if you were a Democrat and you say, why would I donate to the DNC if $15 million still used this year to pay off Kamala's debts when she already had almost $2 billion with cash on hand to spend? All in 107 days, and she still spent $20 million over. Imagine what she would have done with your tax dollars if she were president. But I see some comments coming in. Keep them coming in. We're running just a tad bit late. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
You don't have time to go to the gym? The health club is not an option? Come to Hesselson today and see why swim spas and fitness systems can fit into anyone's yard and budget. 12-foot, 14-foot, 15-foot, 18-foot dual temperature hot tub and swim spas are all on display in Hesselson's indoor and outdoor showroom. Try before you buy. 0% interest-free financing options are available on every Hesselson swim spa. Swim and exercise year-round and start making every day better. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
The Nissan Rogue takes hit after hit, punished under immense pressure, and exposed to excessive wear. We put it through the worst, so you get its best. Now get 0% APR financing for 60 months on the 2025 Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Murano.
Having a safe home is essential to many aspects of our lives. From a sense of community and safety, to physical and mental health, to economic security and independence. Most homes in our communities are not accessible and are not designed to accommodate the changes that come with age, including the risk of falling. The Older Adults Home Modification Program helps reduce the risk of falls, improves safety, and increases accessibility and independence. Through this program, Rebuilding Together works with older adults to provide no-cost preventative home repairs so our neighbors can safely age in place in the homes and communities they love. To learn more, visit rebuildingtogether.org/safeathome.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Ball Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer regarding the Democrats avoiding certain words. All I can think of is that a wolf in sheep's clothing is still a wolf. Thank you very much. Stephen Collinson from CNN says that Trump is readying crushing autumn power play as Democrats search for direction. A bitter fall looms in American politics as President Donald Trump flexes unchecked power that often tests the Constitution, while Democrats grapple for traction with their voters demanding a fight back. Trump seems like a president in a hurry as he threatens to send National Guard troops into more Democrat-run cities, accelerates mass deportation, and takes new swings against the bureaucracy, which last week led to a purge of top scientists at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Abroad, Trump is demanding the Nobel Peace Prize, despite his failure to end two murderous conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza. His trade wars have shredded the U.S. reputation as a bastion of economic stability and pushed India into the arms of superpower China. But his tariff barrage is suddenly looking vulnerable after an appeals court ruled Friday that it is illegal. Nothing is too small for Trump's attention. He's obsessing over his project to redecorate the White House after paving over the fabled Rose Garden, unveiling plans for a multi-million-dollar ballroom and an East Wing makeover. And his raging late-night social media posts show he's determined to insert himself into every aspect of political, cultural, and national life while using his power to harass and investigate his political foes. Remember, this is coming from CNN. But Democrats are finally showing signs of life after enduring an 8-month pummeling by Trump. California Governor Gavin Newsom has turned to searing mockery of the president's outbursts and elevated himself above potential 2028 rivals for the Democrat nomination. So never mind how disastrous he handled the California wildfires or the riots. Because he is mocking Trump, he is now the frontrunner. In Illinois, another Democrat governor, J.B. Pritzker, is seizing the spotlight, warning Trump to keep federal troops out of a promised crime and immigration crackdown in Chicago. The issue is nuanced politically, however. Trump is betting that his hardline tactics will force Democrats to resist, thus allowing him to argue they are soft on crime. Another crisis is brewing in Washington, and that's the government shutdown. But White House officials warn that Trump will accept nothing but capitulation. The president is not going to be constrained. they told the CNN. Democrats face a trap. If they don't stand up to Trump, they will demoralize voters they need to win next year's midterm elections. But they lack leverage in GOP-dominated Washington, as they showed when they walked through and then caved over a March spending duel. If they use the Senate filibuster to block Trump's spending plan, the president will blame them for the economic consequences of shutting down a government they spent months trying to save from the MAGA wrecking ball. Trump spent late summer defying the odd historical quirk that has often dealt presidents serious political blows. In August, he stayed in Washington and doubled down on power grabs, federalizing the Capitol Police Force and sending National Guard troops into the street despite falling crime figures. He sought to destroy the independence of the Federal Reserve in pursuit of interest rate cuts that experts fear could unleash inflation. He fired the head of the agency that published official job data after a disappointing report for July. And he falsely accused former President Barack Obama of treason. I am not a dictator, Trump said. I have the right to do anything I want to do. I'm the president of the United States. His remark betrayed constitutional ignorance when encapsulated his presidency and mindset. So they also said the Epstein thing is going to be coming back. Trump is already seeking to crush Democrats' hopes of winning back the House. His call on Texas Republicans to launch a rare mid-cycle redistricting push could yield 5 new GOP seats. Newsom responded by launching his own operation to find 5 new Democrat seats in California, the fate of which will be put up to voters in November. But other Republican states may heed Trump's call. The president also plans an executive order to ban mail-in voting and require voter identification everywhere. He lacks constitutional authority to do so, but this looks like an ominous effort to discredit the 2026 election. Democrats face an unfavorable Senate map next year, but they got a glimmer of hope last week after news broke that Iowa Republican Senator Joni Ernst plans to announce she won't run for a third term. The state remains a long shot for Democrats, but if they could somehow pull off an upset there and capture Republican-held seats in Maine and North Carolina while holding all their current seats, they could reach a 50-50 Senate split. The extra seat they need to cancel out, Vice President J.D. Vance's deciding vote, looks beyond them, as the most winnable battles are in deep red Ohio and Texas. Democrats do expect, however, to reclaim the governor's mansion in Virginia through former Representative Abigail Spanberger. They're also betting on Representative Mike Sherrill to win in New Jersey in another 2025 gubernatorial contest that will give voters a chance to weigh in on Trump's second presidency. Trump's ambition spans the globe. His summit with Putin in August satisfied his penchant for grand political stages, but did nothing to end the war. And he goes on and on. But Trump faces a tougher adversary in China, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on with that meeting on Saturday. Trump has signaled he may visit Beijing before the end of the year. Chinese President Xi Jinping sent a clear message this weekend that he intends to fill the vacuum left by the U.S. retreat from global leadership at a summit of global strongmen this weekend that included the leaders of India and Russia. So Democrats searching for their direction while Trump has been, since day one, hit the ground running. Ross Barkan, how am I doing on time, said Democrats will have to shift on Israel, but when? So we've talked about their lack of a message and the struggle that they're having. Van Jones saying enough with kind of the woke mindset. But last week, the Democratic National Committee failed to advance 2 competing resolutions that would have clarified the party's stance on Israel's war in Gaza. One proposal, voted down, called for the suspension of military aid to Israel. A second resolution, advanced by DNC Chair Ken Martin, called for secure and unrestricted delivery of humanitarian assistance in Gaza, reaffirmed the DNC's backing of a ceasefire and release of the hostages, and stated the committee supports a 2-state solution. Martin, though, withdrew his own resolution, hoping instead to discuss it with the committee further. There is a divide in our party on that issue. This is a moment that calls for shared dialogue. It calls for shared advocacy. So will they go like the Mamadani route or the kind of the more far left that has been pushing this rather anti-Semitic language? In the near future, perhaps the DNC will find the gumption to back a resolution that is in line with the rest of the electorate. The Democrats running for president in 2028 will be forced in time to cater to these voters, those who are against a taxpayer-funded slaughter. The old consensus around Israel will die. The old consensus around Israel will die, and it won't come back. So now keep in mind, this person who wrote this, Ross Barkan, worked for Mamadani. What they're calling for, what they're pushing for here is a more radicalized Democrat Party when it comes to their kind of anti-Israel sentiment and their anti-Israel statements. Now, we can talk about that, but this is just about them struggling to find their message in general. I have one other thing on that, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the Trump administration. I know school is about to start. Maybe today is the first day in your area, or maybe tomorrow. I would love to hear from somebody on the inside how the new cell phone ban goes the first day. So if anybody has any insider info, let me know. I'd look forward to reading that on the program. But we got to take a short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Steuben County Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 annual implementation plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging. Tire World is your back-to-school tune-up authority. Family service you can trust. Save big on all brand-name tires, suspensions, oil changes, inspections, tune-ups, and exhaust. We give you peace of mind this school season. Your car, your kid's car, your off-to-college car. We have all kinds of tires for all kinds of vehicles. We love tires. We love maintaining your vehicles.
I would highly recommend them.
We came in, 5 minutes, we're in and out.
Get the job done right the first time.
Tire World of Corning, family service you can trust.
Livingston, Big Fox News, Southern Tier.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to some viewer comments. All the Democrats and everyone is saying is that Trump is a fascist. But yet in New York City, that's exactly what they're voting for. Thank you very much. Comment from a different viewer. So how much did it cost taxpayers to implement the cell phone ban? I think it was $13.5 million. Right around $13 million to implement the cell phone ban. That was what was put in the New York State budget. I know at the time we said, why would it cost anything? Just ban the cell phones. But if you recall, New York City was even saying that wasn't enough. $13.5 million. That's a lot of money. $13.5 million to implement a cell phone ban at schools. And there's actually a piece, as I mentioned, that J. Brian McGreever said, "This week marks the blessed end of an era. Our fast times at cell phone high are coming to an end. To protect students from their advanced technology, schools throughout New York State will now enforce a bell-to-bell ban on personal devices such as smartphones, smartwatches, and tablets. The question isn't whether Governor Hochul's new policy is correct, but why it took so long to enact." I would also say, why did it cost $13.5 million? This person writes, after teaching high school English in New York City for parts of 3 decades, I can without hesitation say good riddance to this persistent distraction in our halls, cafeterias, and classrooms. In the fall of 2004, I had no clue that cell phones would play such a huge role in my career. They weren't supposed to disrupt class, overshadow authority, and create general havoc in our schools, but that's exactly what they did. It was charming at first, the tech-savvy freshman capturing board notes with his flip phone. But with the advent of smart devices, the deluge began. Soon, pictures of exams from period 1 were in the phones of period 5 before lunch. Never even thought of that. Then the pizza guy was at my classroom door wanting to get paid, while the girl claiming to be sick dipped under her jacket to text mom. And intimate pictures of couples who broke up during classrooms found their way to 100 devices minutes later. If you're ever wondering how so many kids from so many buildings know the exact time and place for an after-school meetup, those plans were made in class while some teacher discussed Boo Radley's character development. In 2006, Mayor Mike Bloomberg enacted a citywide ban on cell phones in schools, but students found ingenious ways of sneaking them in. Enforcement was spotty, and distractions continued. Then Mayor de Blasio played the role of cool uncle by lifting the ban in 2015, saying it was out of touch with modern-day parenting. We teachers have given our students the same directive for over 20 years now. Please put that thing away. They've been unable to comply. So this week, expect to hear the anger throughout the entire state. Eyes will roll and feet will stomp as they process their new reality. Be prepared for the dummy phone trick, handing in a broken one while the real one is stashed away. Don't be surprised when the broken toilet on the second floor becomes very popular and the cast iron radiator in stairwell B is flanked by a whistling teenager. Expect to witness the 5 stages of grief. And yes, it will be difficult not to turn to my colleagues and say, hey, they did this to themselves. Except they didn't. None of this behavior was a secret. Everyone knew what was happening. This should have been an all-hands-on-deck issue for an entire country from the moment it began. Bear in mind that generations Y and Z are the first young people in history to have their minds manipulated by the spectacular storytelling device that fits in their pocket. A never-ending saga of heroes and supervillains with levels of narcissism never seen before. Children by nature are already drama seekers without having some buzzing contraption of likes and follows handed to them. A global madness on par with Europe's first taste of sugar. Frankly, they never stood a chance. It's terrible to see that disturbing look of determination in their eyes. You call out their names to break the spell, but it does no good. With 6.5 hours of mandated peace every school day, there's a possibility that cooler heads will prevail. The excitable boy who completes his assignments in 2 minutes, the most eloquent and robotic prose AI ever produced, must now sit with his thoughts and do real work. And the brawl down the hall could end with handshakes not posted on World Star until the end of time. If limited screen time prevents one epic beatdown at the local McDonald's, it's worth it. Some of the most remarkable children on the planet attend New York City schools. You just haven't met the real them yet. I'm no Hochul fan, but she's right on this, and it's long overdue. So $13.5 million for the ban will begin. Okay, we're talking about the Democrat Party. Tim Walz, former vice presidential candidate, admitted that his bid for vice president may have hurt him with voters in his home state as he's seeking another term as governor. The Wall Street Journal reported that Walz acknowledged in an interview his bid with Kamala Harris might have hurt him with voters in Minnesota. People get tired of it. I get tired of it myself at times. He said he has not yet decided whether he will seek re-election. The former Democrat vice presidential nominee says he understands voters' desire for something new. He also said returning to Minnesota after running on the national stage could be seen as appearing too big for your britches. Now, the Journal spoke to couples at the Minnesota State Fair who had mixed feelings about Walz and running for governor again, saying he should not run for a third term. It's time for change. Oof. Her husband, Kurt Rahman, also a Democrat, said, I don't see anybody that would be better or do a better job. Cindy said she wanted Senator Amy Klobuchar to run for governor. Walz addressed Democrats at the party's summer strategy meeting in Minneapolis this week when he criticized media coverage of internal divisions. It boggles my mind that in the midst of a military takeover of our cities and the attempt to go into others, their flaunting of the rule of law, their cruelness, and their unconstitutional nature of the way they're attacking our neighbors, that the press finds the need to talk about, oh, there's a division in the Democrat Party. He said, there's a division in my house, and we're still married, and things are good. That's life. He doubled down on diversity, equity, and inclusion during the speech, saying we are not shying away from diversity as a strength, equality as a goal, and inclusion as the air we breathe. That's what we should be doing. There you go. All right, we got some Trump updates in general. Get your comments in. We only got about 15 minutes left, so stay right there. This is, Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Stu County Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 annual implementation plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging. Tire World of Corning is your back-to-school tune-up authority. Family service you can trust. Save big on all brand name tires, suspensions, oil changes, inspections, tune-ups, and exhaust. We give you peace of mind this school season. Your car, your kid's car, your off-to-college car. We have all kinds of tires for all kinds of vehicles. We love tires. We love maintaining your vehicles.
I would highly recommend them.
We came in, 5 minutes, we're in and out.
Get the job done right the first time.
Tire World of Corning, family service you can trust.
Livingston, Big Fox News, Southern Tier.
If you or one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call to
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments, shall we? Mark writes in, can't the people in Steuben County file a lawsuit against Fenton to get their money back that was spent on this case? I don't believe so. At least the thought of the county lawyer was that because his name was on there, he has a right to appeal at your expense. And taxpayer expense. That is the line of thought with that lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, so I guess I defer to that decision, but it's left us as taxpayers on the hook. But thank you for that. Comment from a different viewer. The $13.5 million was probably funneled. That's in reference to how much it costs to have the cell phone ban in New York. The $13.5 million was probably funneled to the Democrat Party and the teachers union. Ask Kamala where her money went. Same deal. A lot of money spent on Kamala's race, almost $2 billion, right? Wasn't it? Especially with that 20,000 in debt. Whew. Ken writes in, things that amaze me: how disingenuous the Democrats are on literally every issue, and how the sheeple blindly follow them, even though they see that they are being lied to. How the legacy media colludes with each other and cherry picks information that they feed to the sheeple, knowing that it hurts their ratings and the nation. And most of all, the realization that this will never end. They will keep the country in turmoil, all so they can gain power and achieve their end goal, wealth. Thank you very much, Ken. To that one viewer's point about the teachers union, there is a piece by the Post editorial board that said, unsatisfied with indoctrinating students in the latest theories, America's two main teacher unions also spent tens of millions of dollars in members' dues on wrecking society more generally. From 2022 to 2024, the National Education Association and American Federation of Teachers together gave more than $43 million to left and far left outfits, including $500,000 to the notorious 1630 Fund, which is indisputable heavyweight of Democrat dark money. Dark money is unregulated, unreported political spending that the left laughably pretends is overwhelming a right-wing menace. Super progressive journalist Taylor Lorenz recently exposed 1630's secret payments of $8,000 a month to lefty social media influencers to push Democrat Party messaging. America's teachers handed nearly $1 million to the John Podesta-founded and George Soros-funded Center for American Progress, widely recognized as the power center for the Obama and Biden administrations. More dues went to the Trevor Project, and they go on and list on and on. Yet this is, at base, taxpayer money. Sure, the teachers earned it before handing it over to the unions, but they have almost no choice about that, as the unions use all their power to reserve teaching jobs for their dues-paying member. Powers that come from the union's support for Democratic politicians and any Republican who will take their orders, and who then give the unions the upper hand in contract negotiation and in writing the laws and regulations that govern education. This all-corrupting impact of public sector unionization is why no less than President Franklin Roosevelt, the patron saint of big government liberals, warned that government workers shouldn't be allowed to form traditional labor unions because their employer is the whole people. Teachers' unions and the elected politicians they support financially are in a conspiracy against the taxpayer. This kind of conspiracy may well destroy the republic if we don't reform it. All right, we got to take our last break, and then we're going to wrap up today's edition of Frankly Speaking, go through some news stories very quickly. So stay with us. We will be right back.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Steuben County Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 annual implementation plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Check out our newsreels and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer: do college professors belong to the teachers union? I think it depends on the scenario and what university or college they're at. Comment from a different viewer: Ken, if we are sheeple, are you the big bad wolf? LOL. Frank, have a great day. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We'll let Ken answer. Christy Nome accuses CBS of shamefully editing her interview on Kilmar Abrego Garcia to whitewash his MS-13 gang affiliation. She said that she noticed the footage had been clipped to remove parts of her answer. Does not come as a surprise, not learning their lesson. CBS rep said Secretary Nome's Face the Nation interview was edited for time and met all CBS News standards. The entire interview is publicly available on YouTube, and the full transcript was posted early Sunday morning at CBS News. This morning, Nome wrote, "This morning I joined CBS to report the facts about Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Instead, CBS shamefully edited the interview to whitewash the truth about him being a gang member and the threat he poses to American public safety." Now, RFK Jr. is, quote, endangering every American's health, according to 9 former CDC directors in a scathing op-ed. All right, yeah, we got getting all these waves in at the end. I appreciate it. Sorry, I saw another comment coming in. Hi, Frank, just letting you know I'm watching. Oh, great. Great show. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Getting those last second waves in. Everybody's seeing that the wave counts were down a little bit this morning. Coming back from Labor Day, getting ready to get in the swing of things. So, yes, a scathing op-ed with 9 former CDC directors calling for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be replaced and that he's a threat. Hi, Frank. Have a great day. Well, thank you. You have a great day as well. Trump says he is open to bringing back insane asylums. Yes, I would. While they used to have them, and you never saw people like we had, they used to have them. And what happens in states like New York and California that that had them. New York had a lot of them. They're releasing them all into society because we couldn't afford it. You know, it's massively expensive, but they were all over New York. I remember when I was growing up. I remember when they did, it was a long time ago, and I said they didn't release these people, and they did. They released them into society, and that's what you have. It's rough. It's a rough situation because you can't have these people walking around. President Trump hints at Biden auto pen portrait in a new White House Wall of Fame gallery. President Trump hinted that he will troll Joe Biden with an auto pen portrait in a new White House gallery he's calling the Presidential Wall of Fame. Excuse me. I couldn't hold that cough in anymore. In a decision I have to make, we put up a picture of the auto pen. He said in an interview, I got to do it. Same picture, but black and white. Yeah, I'm not using that one with a smile. All right. Oh, Ken Wright said, no. The Democrat politicians and the legacy media are the big bad wolves in sheeple's clothing. Thank you, Ken, for that. Thanks for filling us in. Now, the White House celebrated gains for American workers on Labor Day, pointing to non-farm payroll gains of more than 500,000 jobs since Trump took office, with all net employment increases coming from private employers. Federal government payrolls have declined, and the administration implementing workforce reduction. Oh, over the weekend, the left was put out this nasty rumor that something the president had passed away. So Trump saying, never felt better in my life. Also, D.C. is a crime-free zone. Yeah, J.B. Pritzker, others were starting to talk about the president passing, major Democrats and major media. It's weird. After 4 years of keeping their head in the sand, now everything is about health. China's Xi Jinping convenes the Axis of Upheaval, is what they're calling it, in Beijing, sidelining Trump. We can talk more about that on tomorrow's broadcast, but we are completely out of time. Thank you to everybody who joined us. Thanks for all the comments. Thanks for all the waves. And make sure you join us tomorrow morning, starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will see you bright and early. I look forward to it already. Have a great day, everyone.